Call to order the Plan Commission meeting of October 26, 2021. We'll proceed with roll call.
Mr. Holman?
Here.
Mr. Coots?
Here.
Ms. Lazaris?
Here.
Mr. Grady?
Here.
Mrs. Bishop?
Here.
Mr. Foster?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. Plan Commissioners, our next item is number 3, election of vice chair. Waiting since from 2012 to 2020 until the spring of 2020, and did job as vice chair. Now it is time to vice chair. I will invite vice chairman.
I'll nominate Mr. Grady.
Second.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Foster for Grady, a second. And then moved to
I'm sorry, Ms. Lazaris, you were breaking up. It sounded like to me that Mr. Foster nominated Mr. Grady and Mr. Holman seconded it.
That is correct, yes.
And did you want roll call vote?
I'm going to ask if anyone else has any nominations, or if the second wishes to close the nominations. Hearing none, then we're going to proceed roll call vote for Mr. Grady as vice chairman.
Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Ms. Lazaris?
Aye.
Mr. Grady?
Aye.
Mrs. Bishop?
Aye. Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye. Aye.
Mr. Holman?
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. Congratulations, Mr. Grady. We go on with item number 4, correction and or approval of the meeting minutes of August 31. Does anyone have any corrections? If not,
I move adoption of the meeting minutes of August 31st as written.
Mr. Coots will second.
it's been moved by Mr. Foster and seconded by Mr. Grady to approve the minutes. Yeah, Mr. Coots was the second, right? Oh, Mr. Coots was the second. Sorry. Your voice from yonder and one of you. Aye, yeah, so Mr. Foster and the second was Mr. Coots to approve the minutes. All right, and then with that, we'll take a roll call vote.
Ms. Lazaris?
Aye.
Mr. Grady?
Aye.
Mrs. Bishop?
Aye. Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Holman?
Aye.
Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
All right. The next item, aye, thank you. Item number 5. The next item number 5, questions and public comment. The public may address the commission at this time regarding items on the agenda unless the item is the subject of a public hearing. If your comments pertain to a public hearing, please hold your comments until the hearing. We do have 3 public hearings this evening. Item number 7, conditional use request for expansion of vehicle sales, service and repair at Badger Chevrolet Buick, 321 East Tyranena Road. Item number 9, zoning amendment request by Barry G Luce Trust for rezoning the western part of 257 South Main Street and all of the lot at 265 South Main Street from R16 single-family residential to R312 multifamily with PDD Plan Development District Overlay. And item number 11, future land use map amendment to change land use of part of parcel 246071314140001 at 257 South Main Street from single-family development to mixed residential development, and the parcel at 265 South Main Street from planned business office to mixed residential. Public comment may also be made at this time on items that are not on the agenda if you have registered beforehand with the city clerk. The state's open meeting law discourages action by the commission not on items not listed on the agenda. Please keep comments limited to 3 minutes. State name and address. Also fill in the sign-in sheet at the podium. For people online, please type your name and address in the chat feature. Are there any public comments at this time? Is there anyone commenting? Are you here for a public hearing? We have 3 public hearings on the agenda. So if you're here for one of the public hearings, you can comment during the public hearing. Yes, when the public hearing is opened during your public hearing of interest, then we would call for public comment at that time. Of course, yeah. During that public hearing, you could make your comment at that time. Very well. Hearing none.
May I clarify, Ms. Lazaris, that this is for a general public comment portion? So for anything not on the agenda for the public hearings, somebody could speak now, and then Ms. Lazaris will call for the additional items later. I just wanted to clarify.
Right.
Thank you.
All right, we now go to item number 6, which is discussion recommendation for 961, 963 Reed Street Condominium Plat. Mr. Wolf, did you want to go over the this application?
Certainly. I'm all worried about being too loud now. I appreciate that. This is an existing duplex structure located on Reed Street. The property is zoned R2-8, which is our 2-family district. The duplex structure is permitted by right in that district. The property owner at this time is looking to just change the ownership structure from rental to a condo plat to enable each unit to be owner occupied. The existing duplex meets all of our zoning requirements. There's no changes to the property that are proposed. The requisite materials, condo plat, declarations, and such have been provided for review. The access, driveways, etc., does not change. My review of the declarations didn't. In my review, I didn't see anything that the city was obligated to that it shouldn't be. I do turn to the city attorney to affirm if there are any concerns that need to be addressed in relation to this proposal. We have the same comment related to easements. We'll turn to engineering, which works, which is on that, and then of course any technical corrections. But we are recommending approval of that, subject to ensuring issues from the city attorney or public works engineering reasons are addressed.
Thank you. Plan commissioners, you do have Plan Commission Motion 21-10-1 condominium plat approval, Reed Street Condominium 2 pertaining to 961 and 963 Reed Street. Motion 21-10-1 sets forth the city's subdivision and platting authority under Wisconsin state statutes. The condominium plat requested by Neal Shade for 961 and 963 Reed Street. The review by city staff and legal review of platting and associated documents and Plan Commission review. This motion does provide for a Plan Commission recommendation of approval to the City Council for Reed Street Condominium 2 plat, subject to submission of all supporting documentation in proper form. Also, if any required outside agency review is not completed or all supporting and documents not submitted in final form within the time period required by the city, the approvals recommended herein shall be not null and void. For motion, yeah.
Wasn't there an engineering review?
There was both Dustin and Dan touched on the easement topic. That was the major issue. It's similar to the last.
So you're all
Yes.
good? I just didn't want to have it missed.
Yep.
All right, Plan Commissioners, you do have motion 21-10-1. Are there any discussion, any questions of staff or of this proposal? Does anyone want to make a motion concerning this motion?
I move to approve motion 21-10-1 condominium plat approval for Reed Street Condominium.
Mr. Coots will second.
It's been moved by Mrs. Bishop and seconded by Mr. Coots to pass motion 21-10-1. Any further discussion? Hearing none, then we'll proceed with roll call vote.
Mr. Grady?
Aye.
Aye.
Mrs. Bishop?
Aye. Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Holman?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Ms. Lazaris?
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
We go on to item number 7, public hearing, conditional use request from Jim Triatik, architect builder, on behalf of owner Neal Ruffing for motor vehicle service and repair to 321 East Tyranena Road, Lake Mills, Wisconsin, identified by parcel 24607131213-002. I'd like, Mr. Lake, you would give an overview of the request.
We're all familiar with Badger, Chevrolet, and Buick out on Tyranena. When we updated the zoning code a few years back, any certain uses that were recategorized as conditional use in the new code were automatically status for their existing operation. That meant, though, that any substantive changes to the operations would require an amendment to the conditional use, which is this process, a public hearing, notifications, presentations, and such. The petitioners are looking to make some significant expansions to the facilities out there, any buildings, stormwater management, some parking lot improvements and such, some lighting improvements. Again, those are allowable by conditional use. Looking for some notes real quick here. There are certainly some issues that we'll discuss as a part of the staff review at a later date. I know that the owners have a presentation to make related to this, but in a nutshell, once the hearing is open, comments are taken in. Ultimately, the Plan Commission has the ability to determine if and what conditions should be met associated with that, and I can look at the city attorney to make sure that this isn't really denying their ability to expand, but it is making sure code in compliance with any conditions to mitigate any issues that of concern for associated with these operations or to neighboring sites are addressed.
And thank you, Mr. Wolf. Are you Mr. Triatik? And you have a presentation, you can proceed.
Let me start over. My name is Jim Triatik. I'm an architect, builder with Sullivan Design Build, hired by Badger Chevy Buick. I'm here with owner Paul Schleigenhoff and manager Neal Ruffing tonight to help answer any questions you have. I think you saw our plan. I'll just go over it quickly. We did see the report. We do have, we would like to discuss that. We do have some concerns. Some items are no issue, but some are a little of concern. But if you had not familiar with the plan, the interstate is up here, and here's the existing Badger building is this white box here. We're going to expand in 2 locations. Sure. We're going to expand 2 directions. One going to the west with a service addition, a car wash and service bays. Important to the business to serve their customers, and service has really been an issue getting customers in as soon as possible. This area here is near the front, the showroom. That is, we'll have a drive-in service, so people don't have to get out of their cars anymore to go see a service advisor. And there'll also be some quick express loop bays there. In doing all this, you can see here the white is the existing blacktop, and this bluish color is where we are adding on to the parking lot. This bluish area right here is where we want to have future parking. We'd like to expand the parking lot as well, and knowing that, we sized all our stormwater management accordingly. So this darker green area here is a stormwater retention pond. So no longer is all the water just draining directly into the storm sewer. It's going various ways to the stormwater retention pond, then going back this way to your stormwater system. Let's see, I can also show you the building itself. Neal, I'll go to this one. So now the building, this is the view from the interstate. You're obviously familiar with it. It's white split face block, the blue accents at the front entrance. So we are adding on a service bay. Now, on the other side of this doesn't face the interstate or all these garage doors where those trucks pull in. But this is the addition of the building, 168 feet. We got some windows up high to let light in. That's that door of the car wash exit. Yeah, now this is the other side, the garage doors facing the main road. And this is the doors by the showroom, the new delivery is. This elevation, the east one, that shows the main front door that's painted blue. Everything else is white split face block. There is a blue stripe. I didn't address that. We continue the blue stripe around there, make it look like, as I promised the owner, I didn't want it to look like an addition. So we're going to great lengths to use the split face, you know what I mean, block match. So that's my presentation in a nutshell. The owners are here for any questions and discuss these items that have been brought up.
Thank you, Mr. Triatik. Plan commissioners, do you have, well, I guess first, we will get to any questions they may have, but we are in public hearing. So now we would have an interest in anyone who wishes to make a public comment concerning this request for expansion by Badger Chevrolet and Buick. Does anyone wish to make a public comment concerning this requested expansion? Are there any comments that anyone wishes to make concerning this expansion? Hearing none, to close the public hearing and on to item number 8, discussion recommendation on conditional use request from applicant Jim Triatik, architect builder, on behalf of owner for motor vehicle service and repair to 321 East Tyranena Rd. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Mr. Triatik?
I have a question. You said you had some concerns with the recommendations to your application?
Yes.
Could we get those resolved?
I'm not sure what they are, the wants to code out these things.
Yeah.
For the clients for the addition. I don't understand when original building.
Mr. Wolf, can you turn on your microphone, please?
It says that part of the city changed a bit. We lodged a walk very fine. You put your that's on microphone.
Let's try that again. Again, when it was first developed, it was in town. Next, just a code at that time. Current code clearly specifies in what's required for planned business, not in commercial entities as a whole as it relates to site layout, landscaping, lighting, etc. As I said, it's a very kind of fine line between trying to bring development closer to compliance with what the code says, without being, so we try to strike that balance. We fully respect that you come in and say, great, you want to do an addition, here's the laundry list of things. This is not the approach we take. But we do look at things from not just an aesthetic perspective, which is some of the landscaping issues, to site circulation, site safety, site organization, making it clear how things are going to be located on property. This is especially important because as we start looking at when development happens and product is coming in, we need to make sure that it's not. I'm going to pick on some other things along Tyranena Road, where things are just kind of parked everywhere. I am not picking up the specific user, but those are the concerns that we have a code and city compliance perspective. So there are some things in here that in our memo that we are requesting. Some might be a little bigger than others, and that's kind of the conversation to be had. We try to be mindful, but I can't say which issues, of course, are concerning to them, and then of course you, which ones are. First issue is a certified program. That is not an optional element. Stormwater management. Some parking is on one parcel over to. But everything else, we wouldn't allow that. So it has to happen. There are some revisions to the plan that we'd like to see. Some additional foundation landscape areas which is required by code, especially when you're doing large additions. And then the addition of parking lot landscape islands. You're giving them credit on the north side along the interstate for the planting that they're putting. The perimeter planting out there. The code does require, on average, one landscape island per parking stalls. We're not at that. We also require that end cap to be landscape island. That helps with traffic circulation, safety versus
well, now it's harder to find.
It defines
Where parking
the parking
occur,
how it's going to occur.
and
I
I recognize
recognize
it's
it's
a
a
business,
business, but 25 years that I've been a planner working across the country,
people will
people
park
park
anywhere
anywhere
on
on automotive related
and
drive miles suddenly become part of parking. So we need to define where parking will happen, where it is not intended to happen. We can certainly work with them to make sure that delivery, access, et cetera, occur, but this is an issue is we don't allow behavior to be entirely. That's just another article of the city for a number of years. 2014. Lighting photometrics to identify any light pole removal. It looked like someone came out, we just want to make it clearer, and then if lighting poles are being replaced out there, that needs to be illustrated. Now showing wall pack lighting, you need photometrics associated with the lighting to make sure it's complying with our lighting code. So site plan architectural drawing provides indicate parking calls for future parking and existing parking areas. We'd like the plan to identify for service, customer, and inventory parking areas. Make sure that inventory is taking over customer parking, and as I mentioned, parking is happening haphazardly. We're not going to require signage and stuff, but
These are things we do
things we can monitor and make sure that code requirements for minimum parking are being met, obviously in their best interest as well, because it's their customer.
We also
We also want to make sure that parking doesn't occur where it should.
in
In
drive
drive
aisle,
aisle, areas that might cause vision concern, whether on site, coming on and off. And of course, we don't want to see parking getting out in the right of way. None of the existing signage is illustrated on the elevations and such. We'd like to make sure that that's understood. There's a lot of signage out there existing. We'll make sure that any future signage proposed to be clear, future signage would be proposed a separate process for that review. Then we get into the architectural detailing issue that the code does specify vertical and horizontal relief for very long buildings. And this is a very large addition. So we would like to see some, whether it's material changes, color changes, like have kind of blue highlighted areas in the architectural elements on the existing buildings, and you can see here, showroom area. The north side of the building will have no change. One long white building, small windows, and roof stripes. South side will have bays, etc. The north side, they basically have nothing. Again, the code is specific on requiring some elements out of there to break up what will now be 250 odd feet of running wall with this addition. So I'm sure that is a point we'd like to discuss. And then if there were any comments from the engineering public works staff related to drainage. So with that, they would like to provide some feedback.
Before we went to petition, Mr. Wolf, you mentioned the certified survey map was necessary because the stormwater drainage is on one side of the parcel and parking on the other. What is the effect of this? How is that going to be?
There's also a green space requirement for all sites, whether it's commercial, residential, multifamily. That's the other thing. So to meet the green space requirements, there are cases where we've allowed stormwater management plans, easements, etc. The cleanest, simplest thing to do, and because of the green space requirement for the code, it needs to be one contiguous site.
So you're saying there are two parcels involved and they need to merge? And then merging basically grants you the density of both stand parking requirements?
Yes, we have.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Plan commissioners, do you have any questions of Mr. Triatik?
I would like to know what his concerns are.
All
I think
right.
that's what we're waiting for.
Right.
They're asking about,
What's that?
about your perspective and your concerns
Number one
about the
concern
staff's
is
recommendations.
winter coming. We want to get started as soon as possible. So I would like to walk out of here with approval with obviously some conditions that the staff can approve when we resubmit. But going through them one by one, we don't object. I understand to combine it into one CSM. That's only logical. It's just time that would take. I'd like to, keep going on the project, and that would be a condition of occupancy or approval later on. But that's not an issue for us. Neither is adding the photometrics. I thought it was in this set, but I can update that and identify those lights a little better. Same thing with the signage and, indicating the parking areas, labeling more accurately. But yes, the big one is landscaping with being auto dealers. So they got the greatest spot on the interstate, and trees will block the view, and the birds and the sap or what have you with the cars. It's always an issue, the landscape islands. I wasn't asking a whole lot in this report for those 3 landscape islands. Not insurmountable, but it's one of their concerns. Typical concern. The view of the building, and then the building itself. That's the articulation or wanting to break it up. That's the back of the service department. So if we look at it's all shop and tool benches and parts storage. We don't want to make it look like those 2 blue front entrances that are facing here in the interstate, because that's where we want customers to walk in. That's why they're painted blue, typical Chevy entrance. Perhaps something we can do to vary that a little bit, but we don't want to make that wall inviting either by adding windows similar to the showroom. So I guess our 2 big concerns of the whole list is the landscaping, doing something other than varying the wall a little bit, making the block a little thicker, but adding more windows or making storefront windows just doesn't fit the floor plan. And every car dealer has a service department where it's a big box. And we're in a good news, bad news with this site. There's really, we got 2 front streets for a lot of exposure. I gotta hide it somewhere. Interstate. So, the other thoughts you 2 had, but that's,
My name is
Zaris?
This isn't like, what's my line or anything. I actually am the owner of Badger Truck and Auto Group. And we have been in business where our main location is right on the interstate. If you're familiar with I'm not saying parking, Amfam Field or going to Five Serve or even Potawatomi. We're right on the interstate, and at that location, 4 units. And keep in mind, we're trucks only. We started in 1965. So for us to venture into the automotive retail side, been an eye-opener. Dealerships. The previous owner, November of 2018. So through as we've adjusted and grown, starting to grow, I should say, in Lake Mills, recognize that we need to we're growing to the point where we need to have things like additional service care of customers, not only just retail customers, those of us who drive SUVs or minivans or automotive or cars. We have commercial accounts as well. That's the reason why we're building a separate phase. So from my perspective, and so I ask for your patience with us, coming from the truck world, if we see a truck in Milwaukee that's not white in color, something's wrong, like we misordered it, because most of the trucks that we have are white. So that's just a difference between a commercial selling versus retail selling. So the fact is, what we're trying to do is to make this customer friendly, make it more attractive to the eye, and make it efficient for customers as well as our employees to get vehicles in and out of the shop. And the one concern that we have is from a plowing standpoint. You had mentioned snow plowing, and let's hope we don't need to use that this year, but I don't believe that's going to be the case either. Hope Jim's much more of an expert on this than I am, but I think with what we're doing, hopefully you'll all agree that we're trying to give a little bit of a facelift to what we're presently having that ultimately will look not only professional, but inviting for customers to come buy vehicles from Badger, Chevrolet, Buick. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wolf, you wanted to say something?
This is if I could just clarify one of the elements. At no point will be suggesting this would be very large windows on the service side. Fully respect the operations side. We wanted to turn the opportunity back over to the designer to come up with something that would help bring up that wall, whether it is we suggested using a little more continue the beam the showroom a little further west. Important to note that if it was a conditional use request, the items are handled by staff, administrative. So this is a little bit of an anomaly, not standard procedures because we wouldn't normally work with them to try to sort this out separately. We understand that they don't want to have much vehicles on the site because of the vehicles and stuff. We are fully supportive of pushing on the perimeter. There are concerns with some interior lighting or trees not really intention. There's certainly a lot of profit utilized. Again, it has been our experience that unless you have any camps for parking areas.
Okay, planning commissioners, are there any other comments or questions concerning this request?
Commissioner. The first one is, I was hearing from Mr. Wolf that in those end caps, we don't necessarily need trees so much as just green. Is that something you think you could work with? We're not doing trees or big evergreens or something that would strip that?
Yeah, I think so. I was going off of this report where they had some end caps, here in yellow. This is kind of a new part of it. So, yeah, that would help. Yeah, I think we could work with that.
And then the second thing that I'm sort of hearing is because this is planned business and not industrial, I think from an ordinance standpoint, we didn't want that long 250-foot wall to look over the industrial. So I think, if you the blue stripe fine, but maybe some vertical relief as well. Is that something that would be possible for you to add?
Yeah, and it wasn't summarized, but report it said, and this is what kind of worried me, it said mimic the rest of the building with the framing of windows and entrances with columns. And that's what I was really referring to. And that's what I meant. I don't want an entrance on the back. But yeah, we can vary the brick thickness. I'll come up with something, but I didn't want entrances and columns. I'm not sure if you saw that. That's what I was probably most concerned about.
You don't want people coming in the back way thinking.
Right, that to mimic that blue entrance, like, well, no, that wouldn't, not what we're after. So that's what I was, the sentence that kind of concerned me most.
So with this conversation now, part 4D of Mead and Hunt's recommendation is just add architectural detailing variation to the elevation, the western addition in a manner that mimics the existing structure. Is there any amendment that you would then ask this commission to make to that recommendation, or are we okay with that recommendation?
No, I think we're okay. I mean, now going forward would be what I'm used to is staff approval. Plan commission approves this, but then staff will approve the changes that we just talked about. In other words, I have to come back to the plan commission again another month. I don't have another month. So.
Mr. Wolf?
Yeah.
Certainly.
And then after this, it goes to the Common Council in a week or so. So that would be approved there, right, based on getting staff approval. Kind of goes without saying. Right, right. And speaking of that, does Lake Mills is a certified municipality? Can I get state approval from Lake Mills? Or do I have to go to the state? Okay. No, it's just the state's kind of far out on their appointments. Okay. No, I think we're all fine with that.
Planning commissioners, are there any other comments or questions concerning this request? We have before us Lake Mills Plan Commission Motion 2110-2, Lakeland CB Real Estate LLC by Neal Ruffing, doing business as Badger Chevrolet Buick, 321 East Tyranena Park Road, parcels 246071312130002 and 246071312130001. Motion 2110-2 sets forth the city's regulatory authority for land use, state statutes, and the certain requirements that exist in code for conditional uses. The application by Neal Ruffing for conditional use expansion of Badger Chevrolet Buick. Review by city staff. Tonight's public hearing and plan commission review. This motion does provide for a plan commission recommendation of approval to the city council, subject to the petitioner meeting all applicable municipal code and statutory requirements, and additional requirements provided in the planner's memo. And these, as we had mentioned prior, first, combining the two individual parcels of this property via certified survey map. Second, landscaping plan be revised to include revisions for foundation landscape areas and materials and parking landscape islands. 3, lighting and photometrics plan be revised to identify lighting pole removals and any anticipated replacement or proposed lighting. 4, site plan and architectural drawings be revised to A, indicate location and marking of parking stalls in the future parking and existing parking areas. B, identify service, customer, and inventory parking areas. C, include existing signage locations. D, add architectural detailing and variation to the northern elevation western addition in a manner that mimics the existing structure. And 5, any additional requirements provided by the city's engineering and public works staff. This motion also confirms findings of fact regarding the requested conditional use as follows. A, the use will not be detrimental to or endanger public health, safety, morals, comfort, or general welfare. B, the use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the vicinity or substantially diminish and impair property values. C, the use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding property. D, there are adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and/or other necessary facilities. E, adequate measures will be taken for ingress and egress so as to minimize traffic congestion in the public street. F, the use shall in all respects conform to regulations of the district in which it is located. G, the use that is present at the proposed location is in harmony with the purposes, goals, objectives, policies, and standards of the City of Lake Mills Comprehensive Plan, and H, potential public benefits of the proposed conditional use outweigh any and all potential adverse impacts of the proposed use. That is motion 21-2. Would anyone care to make a motion concerning this?
Motion to approve 2110-2.
Is there a second?
Mr. Coots will second.
And there has been a motion. Yes, by Mr. Grady. Thank you. By Mr. Grady, a motion by Mr. Grady and a second by Mr. Coots to pass motion 21-10-2. Any discussion? Hearing none, then we'll proceed with roll call vote.
Mrs. Bishop?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Holman?
Aye.
Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Ms. Lazaris?
Aye.
Mr. Grady?
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Our next item number 9, public hearing request for zoning amendment from Barry G Luce Trust, Lake Mills, for the purpose of changing the zoning from single-family residential R16 to multifamily residential R312 with a planned development district overlay PDD for the western part of the property located at 257 South Main Street, Lake Mills, and the property at 265 South Main Street, Lake Mills. Mr. Wolf, we can start with you and with an overview of this rezoning request.
I think Blue says I'm okay. This site is just south of downtown. The two properties are zoned R1-6. The northern property has a single-family home on it. The southern property is what's affectionately known as the Bayberry. Was a rooming house for years. The rooming house is the issue because of the R1 zoning that's on there, which is single family. The desire to use it as apartments and to make significant improvements to the site requires the rezoning to the R3-12 district. Because of the site conditions, it's very narrow, very deep property, and because of the requirements that are in the code for multifamily development, the decision was made by the petitioner to request the planned development district overlay to try to get a little bit of latitude to make the existing site work for some of their improvements. They're also looking to do some expansion into the northern property, the rear of the single family property. They would be looking to have a certified survey map done that would, in essence, add land to the Bayberry site. And then they were looking at making certain physical improvements back there for a garage, for internal parking for the units, and then visitor/additional tenant parking, surface parking there. There would be some stormwater management at the rear of the Bayberry site. There are internal improvements that are looking to be made. One of the issues out there is that the zoning code specifies a minimum size for apartment units themselves. And if they are not able to meet that, you'd either need to go to Board of Appeals or through the plan development process. We certainly have some comments related to what's being proposed, but in a nutshell, that's the proposal before you, is to rezone to plan development district to accommodate the refurbishment of the existing Bayberry, and then to append some land from the neighboring property to the north to construct other improvements, notably garage parking and surface parking.
I just have one question for Dustin. The PDD also helps the density issue, right? It also helps the density issue.
Yes.
That's the primary reason, isn't it, for the PDD?
It's not the primary reason for the PDD. The PDD gives flexibility. This is a challenging issue because it's an existing building, right? And it's probably something we would not entertain if someone was looking to build a new facility out there and exceed the density requirements. Again, it does come down to the character of the neighborhood, the context, and appropriateness related to that. When the PDD is used, they do need to satisfy certain requirements in how does this benefit not just the property, but the neighborhood and the community as a whole.
Thanks.
Public hearing, is there anyone who wishes public comment? Request. And please state your name and address for the record.
Pete Weston, the Design Alliance Architects in Fort Atkinson, 1003 Madison Avenue, Fort Atkinson. I'm here representing the project. We've worked on it for a number of years as we're sort of chunking away and got halted with the COVID problems, etc. There were some recommendations by the planner in the packet from Mead and Hunt regarding likely not absorbing some of the backyard of the existing residential property, but rather presenting a smaller parking lot plan. We're fully on board with all suggestions. They're manageable. We had at one point brought the building drawings through the state plans approval process, and any of these suggested changes are they make that process that much easier. They all reduce the load on the building. It is existing non-compliant as a boarding house. When we started the project, we shouldn't ever think something's no-brainer, but we were looking at taking what potentially could be a lot of units if the building was just remodeled and brought back up to shape to quite a few less, and usually a subtractive project like that is straightforward. Of course, everything takes some effort. And the plan for rezoning here just sort of allows the door to be open to remodel the building as a smaller number of occupants and I think a softer use. That's the intent, at least. We've also worked with the State Historical Society quite a bit, getting through all of their processes, etc. And they're all on board for us trying to resurrect the building and keep it going.
Thank you, Mr. Weston. Anyone else who wishes to comment can and please state your name and address for the record. Well,
my name is John Kopp. I live next door to the Bayberry Inn at 269 South Main Street. Would it be possible to hand out some pictures?
certainly.
Not going to talk. Not going to talk. I told you. State of the building. The last many years. And if this truly were something that you wanted to be here. Pat
Klein was the previous owner. Sold it to Barry and Tom in 1994. First group of pictures shows the side of the building that we face every day. Most of the windows are falling out into our property. My wife talked to Barry last week and Barry said that he was not going to replace windows. I don't see how you can get away with that. There's 37 windows on one side of the building. I don't see how you can afford a renovation like that. Go to the second set of pictures, the awning on the top of the building. You can see the eaves are all rotting and falling into our property. They're home to animals, squirrels, birds. They fly in and out all day long. Go to the picture of the foundation, the concrete. This is the southeast corner of the building. You can actually see into the wall that it's crumbled that far. The trash you see below that on the second picture and the last picture, the second to last picture, has been there for over 5 years. I've complained and nothing is ever done. I know in the meeting report that they talk about a garage in the back. The city actually had to have them take it down because it was leaning and falling over. So they hired somebody to come in, put it in a pile and burn it. The rest of the trash is still sitting there over a year later. And the very last group of photos is the back porch. That's been that way forever. There's a TV underneath, garbage cans, there's toilets. They've been sitting there for months, years. And then if you look beyond that, where the picture of the trailer, that's the 257 South Main property. It's just a junkyard. In my opinion, this should be just torn down. Single family residence put up. If not proven to be good land. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We are still in public hearing. Is there anyone else who wishes to make a statement during this public hearing? Yeah, go ahead. And of course, state your name and address for the record.
I'm Tom Vince, resident of the community for about 45 years. I've probably known Tom and Barry longer than anybody in this room. First day I met him, they were taking all the trash out of the Fargo Mansion Inn's yard, or working on taking the boards off the windows. Barry has a flaw. It's that he loves old buildings. He loves bringing them back to life. And I think he's done an outstanding job in this community with many, many buildings. Easy, point fingers, and I understand next to a property during this process is not the easiest thing in the world. But it also has been a lot of delays along the way with getting the proper tax historical programs in place. They are in place. The tax credits are there. Trying to do a lot of things during the COVID has been an extremely difficult situation. Anyone that's tried to do anything during this period of time. I've had a couple of projects that I've tried to do. Just materials and trying to find people to do the work has been extremely difficult. In one way, it's been a blessing to allow time for this process to go through, get done. As far as the windows go, I don't want to. I would have replaced windows a long time ago. But when you're trying to do the historical renovation, you ask the state what they want you to do. They want you to fix old windows. Much easier to put vinyl windows in and things of that nature. That's what I would do if I was doing a project. But again, because of the historic nature of this thing, that's the way it's done. Anyway, I just think you have to look at a lot of the things that have been done over the years. And again, Tom and Barry have had a history of bringing things that were in pretty bad shape to being some of our great assets of this town. I'm sure so many people have been at the Fargo Mansion for some event over the years. It's just amazing. I was coming home from the ball game the other night, and my friend, I asked something about Lake Mills, and she went to her phone, and she said, oh, look at this. What came up just automatically in doing a search was a picture of the Fargo Mansion Inn. And I thought, you know, how many people know the Fargo Mansion Inn as part of our community? And I believe, I'm not going to say I would have chosen to renovate the Bayberry the way Barry's heart is into this thing, but I look at all the other things that he's done, and I think they've done an outstanding job, and hopefully they'll allow him to move forward on this project. And I really believe ultimately the neighbors are going to be pleased with the outcome.
Thank you, Mr. Vince. We are still in public hearing. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment on this request? Again, state your name. Again, state your name and address for the record.
I can't hear anything you said, so.
Again,
okay for me
state
to
your
speak
name.
now?
State your name, yes, you can.
Tom Boyks, 406 Mulberry Street, Lake Mills, Wisconsin. I am Barry's life partner. We've been together for 40 years. We are married. We've put our heart and soul into this community. Yes, I'd be the first to admit that we let the Bayberry project fall behind. And I deeply applaud. Didn't do anything intentional to hurt a person at all. So Barry cannot be here tonight. I rushed him to the hospital on Friday. He's suffering from congestive heart failure and had to have angioplasties done. I brought him home today. Doctor's orders were not to come here tonight. He wanted to because he doesn't want to be subjected to some of the negative things that we know. And I'd be the first one to admit that we let the Bayberry property slide. And COVID came along and we couldn't do anything that we had planned. We have done major problems fixed this year with our property. We painted the entire Fargo Mansion, top to bottom. We tuck pointed the entire Opera Hall building, replaced windows, painted that building. Going down the street, we just completed last week complete renovation of the exterior of the corner mercantile building, the Bruns building, which is another historical property. The year before, we rebuilt the entire tower on Joseph McGann's, our former restaurant, which is now the Grist, and had both of those painted. We constantly think about what we are presenting. We love this community. We're not here to hurt anybody. We have never hurt anybody. We have employed many, many high school kids over the years who are now college professors, doctors, and lawyers. We've had ups and downs like anybody else. 2008 hit, we had financial destitution. We had almost lost everything we owned. We survived that. I survived a stroke in 2012. I'm lucky I can even be up here and speak. Barry crushed his leg remodeling one of our buildings. He has been crippled from that for the last 20 years. So all we're asking is that we take this property and bring it back to the Cottage Hotel Apartments. It has a ton of history. We are not going to take any green space from the other building next door. That building is, as we speak, they're rebuilding the porches and they're painting it right now. And the tenant has been instructed to remove that stuff back there in the next 30 days. All we're asking is a chance to bring that building back. I don't think we want that building torn down. Also, we also have a commitment with the city We have the driveway that goes through our property is an easement, not signed. We would absolutely sign an easement with the city and the fire department to keep that as their easement to get out in case their exit would be blocked. That's been a gentleman's agreement with them since we bought the property. And we renovated that property in '94. We did actually used it as a bed and breakfast, the Bayberry Inn. And then they built hotels around us. They built a hotel on the interstate, which is not the most desirable place today, but it was back then. That took all of our business away. So we turned it back into a boarding house. Yes, we should have been more diligent on the clients, but those clients came through Jefferson County. They asked us to put these people up there. They paid 1 month's rent. We never saw another dime. St. Vinny's constantly, even today, calls, says, we have a homeless person. We want them to, what can we do to help them? All right. They would give us $300 to put them up for a month. And then we would hope that they'd get on back on their feet and maybe go back to work or help us pay the rent. We never saw another dime. In the last 5 years, we saw about $1,000 a year in rent. But we kept a lot of people off the street, sheltered, with a roof over their heads. And if they needed money, we'd set up an account on the cafe on the park so they could eat. We never did anything intentionally to anybody in this community. So all we're asking is that we have a chance to prove that we know what we're doing and that we can renovate that building. The State Historical Society is behind us. There is no way they're going to let that building be torn down. And we are going with their guidelines. As far as the windows are going, yes, they're falling apart. But the last year, we didn't do anything. And then the supply chain dried up. We couldn't even get a contractor to do anything for us. And as far as the Historical Society goes, they'd like to restore and repair. They hate the word gut. Don't ever go to the Historical Society and say, I want to gut this project, because you're not going to get anywhere. So we've worked with them digitally. Like I said, it's been over 2 years because of all the delays, COVID including. So all we're asking is that we will do everything that Mead and Hunt has told us to do. In your packet, there's a segment in the back pages, what's it called? Basis for approval from that section on. We're going to shorten the amount of apartments in there. We're not going to use any part. We don't want a garage. If they want us to build a garage, we'll build a garage where it was at one time. We're totally on board for whatever is asked of us. And we have never, ever have done anything behind the scenes or without being approved. We're constantly asking approval. Barry is in constant communication with Steve Wilson and other parties that are concerned, not for only the Bayberry property, but all the other properties we have. And we are the sponsorships for so many events that your families enjoy downtown. So I understand Don and Lee's frustration. I totally agree with them. It's our fault. We own that. But this is our chance to shine on that property. And that property should remain. And you've got letters of support from other individuals in the community. And so all I'm asking is to consider it. I'm considering it, and I know that this project, as it sits tonight, nothing could really be approved. But we'd like to have the zoning so we can go ahead and have these plans redrawn back to the way we want to see it. 8 or 9 apartments at the most. And no other encroaching on any other. We're not using 257 Main Street for anything. And you have our word, and you have our word. You're the one that suggested it, right, Justin? Okay. Right. So I'm ranting, I know, but I have a passion, and this is my partner, ill right now. I want this to be go home and say this is a positive step going forward. That's all we're asking. And, whatever time it takes, we've got the time. And we're sitting there for 2 years now. So if you have any questions to me, please ask him, or Justin, if there's anything you want to, Dustin, I'm sorry, want to say or that I missed, please speak up. Yep.
Okay, all right, thank you, Mr. Boyks. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Again, state your name and address for the record.
My name's Randy Otto. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me, Dustin? All right, good. I live at 275 South Main Street. That's one door down from John and Rita. They're my next door neighbors. And we've been residents of the community for close to 25 years. And I think it's important to remember that we're all neighbors, first of all. Tom and Barry, and we're all neighbors in a pretty small town and in a community. And we've lived near the Bayberry Inn all this period of time, and we've seen the disintegration of the property, and heard about it once or twice too. You know, I mean, it has been a matter of discussion in our neighborhood. And in following this plan, the packet that you guys have, kind of all along as a fly on the wall. And I think the original plan called for a flag lot. Am I right? Illegal. Like flag lot.
Flag lot.
That's taking the lot next door. I know you're not doing that, but that was probably Dustin's suggestion that flag lots are not legal. Does the concept of spot zoning come into effect here, Dustin?
I have to look at Ms. Lazaris on the comment. Because it's a public hearing, it's not.
Pam, you would know probably. Spot zoning, is that germane to this conversation?
Yes and no. Yes and no. A big consideration this case is concept of the R312 with planned development district, and then also the historic use of the property are both factors that would say that the concerns about spot zoning start to diminish when you take these other things into consideration. And of course, it's not the most favorable treatment is to take one lot and to have it in a different zone than the surrounding.
This is quite
lots.
different. You've got to agree then than what's around.
Yeah, not
right?
Unheard of. It is different, yes. As it's not dramatic in that it's not for a high density multifamily.
Right, there'll be 9 apartments now down from 11. Is that correct?
Right.
Nine, and you've gone, and we've got a smaller lot. We've got, how big is the lot exactly? It's 700 feet by what, and how, is that half of an acre? Or what is it?
The lot is like 6/10 of an acre. It's
okay. And with the PDD-Overlay, you took it down to half an acre to allow for the historic property to be grandfathered in essence.
Yes, it's the challenging issue is you have an existing historic building. This is not a situation. Had someone come in and said, I want to now take a lot, do a PDD so I can put multifamily in there, that would be a very different ask than I am trying to preserve what has been there for decades and decades. The only way to enable this is the R312 with the planned development district to accommodate, to provide the level of flexibility necessary to make this property kind of comply with the bulk of the code requirements.
As a neighbor, I must say that my concern has to do with parking. You know, with the flag lot, with the larger lot, it didn't look like it would be a big problem, but it's pretty skinny back there for, what is it? You're going down to one vehicle per apartment, and then the rest of the parking will be on the street. Is that correct?
One of the challenges we have here is truly understanding the user needs here. The code specifies for multifamily, you have to have one interior parking spot and one exterior parking spot per unit. And then a half a parking spot per unit for visitors. The only way to make that happen, to even get close, is taking over the rear of the neighboring lot. Staff is not supportive of that because we feel that really does change the character of the neighborhood. Right. However, doing something where they could have surface parking, think long driveway with the ability to pull in perpendicular, right? Or 9 to 11 parking stalls. So 9 would be one per unit that we're recommending. 11 would be one per bedroom on what the staff is recommending.
Right.
There certainly would be the ability to park on the driveway if there are visitors, but our concern is trying to enable the site to function properly without resulting in, I'll say, significant impact to neighboring properties. Accommodating 9 parking stalls back there, right, is going to be very different than the neighbors. But if it is well screened, right, it should not result in a significant impact to neighboring property owners. We are trying to be very mindful of that issue. Thinking that if you have, these are small units, they're generally around 600-700 square feet, except for the couple that we're recommending to be 2-bedroom. Yes, it is entirely possible that you could get 2 people per unit in there, right? And each one of them has a vehicle. The site can't accommodate that much parking.
Right.
There is going to be a responsibility, and there's going to be a tenant responsibility to understand you're going to get one stall on site. You may, and again, the property owners or the tenants may need to make other arrangements to park. I'm going to just arbitrarily picking places. The public lot across the street from here, which is a walk up the block, parking at the fire department. Again, I'm just throwing things out that there are, you're not going to be able to park 15 cars on this site without paving the bulk of the rear of the site. And to me, that would have a very negative impact on the neighboring properties, the character of the neighboring properties. And based on what I'm hearing from the property owner of the Bayberry, they concur with that, right? They want to be able to, we need to make sure that we can accommodate the Bayberry, hopefully successful, fill all their tenants, and accommodate their tenants. But going in, the tenant's going to have to know you're only going to get one parking stall. There's some on-street parking. Winter becomes kind of a challenge, right?
We can understand the concern
Absolutely.
of neighbors, you know what I mean?
So I don't want this to be a back and forth because you're supposed to be directing to the commission.
Right.
So
okay,
not
sorry.
to the audience, and so I'm trying to answer the questions, but usually the things we would get into under the next discussion item.
Right.
So
just kind of be aware that, okay, you're on Main Street and there's parking across the street. You can't park on the west side of the street because of the way the parking is, right? And so my concern in looking at the reduction of the parking in the packet that you guys got was that there might be people parking across the street, maybe in front of somebody's property, that maybe they've got a duplex, or maybe they've got company, or, you know, I don't know. But parking to me might be something that could be addressed here by your group. So I always do a kind of a plus and a minus thing for me. You're going from 11 down to 9 apartments. It is a smaller lot, so you're potentially putting 18 people in a 77-foot wide lot. Goes pretty deep in an old building. It's a historic building, but you're also doing it with neighbors that have, over the years, proven to be good neighbors in Lake Mills. And you've got to trust that the people that are doing this development know what they're doing, that have been around for a while. And so what are the positives? You've got a historic building that you're preserving. According to this Mead and Hunt piece, it's close to downtown. I don't know what that means in the grand scheme of things. You would know better than I would, because you're on the planning commission. But having more people living near the downtown area, having more housing in the downtown area is part of the plan for the community. I get that. So those are the positives. I don't know. Right now, if you look at the building and you look at the backyards, I think anything's better than what we've got right now. So it's up to you guys. You've got to live with the fact that you're keeping this building on a pretty small lot. It's going to be tight, and it's my experience when people get into tight spaces, sometimes interesting things happen. So I just throw all of that out there just to say I appreciate personally what Barry and Tom have done in this community. And I don't think it should be about personalities. I think it should be about zoning. I think it should be about smart development. And you guys have got an interesting decision to make. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Mr. Otto. We're still in public hearing. Would anyone else like to comment?
Hi, Pete Weston again at the Design Alliance Architects. I just wanted to throw in the history of the building is it's a 22-unit boarding house, existing non-compliant, obviously in a state of disrepair right now that would take a lot of work to bring back. But in the aggregate, the history of the building moves from 22 to 9 units. And with the swing and tenor of things changing in the world, we are finding everywhere we go zoning requirements that are leading to less mandated parking requirements. And I don't think this is a stretch at all, assuming a parking stall per bedroom in this building. Thank you.
Mr. Weston.
My name is Rainey Cobb, 269 South Main Street. I hate public speaking, so this takes a lot for me to do this. The building was condemned in July of 2019, pre-COVID. Having a building condemned does not happen overnight. It took years. That place was falling apart for 10 plus years before 2019. I know you guys have done a lot recently. If you look what's happened in the last year and a half with what they've done, yep. But boy, it was interesting how a lot of things have happened in the last couple of months, knowing that they're going to be having this meeting coming up. Now, Barry and Tom have done a lot for the community, no doubt about it. But what we have lived next to forever has been crap. We have had conversations with them. We've had conversations with the city. Nothing has ever been done. Again, when we bought the house, signs were there. It was a great place to be. Can you imagine what that's going to be like when we need to sell our house, having this thing next to us? Yes, I would like something different. But again, it didn't happen overnight. Got a lot of properties, a lot of investments. You got to invest in all of them all the time. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. We are in public hearing. Is anyone else wanting to make a comment concerning this request?
Actually, my name is Eric Burns, and I own the property across the street from the Bayberry Inn. And I do not live there. I rent the house out. There's an upper and a lower. And in Lake Mills, we have to realize there is a housing shortage of good rental housing. When I put a sign out and I run ads, I have a line of people waiting to rent my place. So I fully support the project, and I recognize that the building right now needs some help, but But I do believe that through the historical tax credit program, they have rules and regulations. I've done it at work before, and they will make sure that everything goes the way it's supposed to. And I also believe that Barry and Tom will do the right thing too. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. We are still in public hearing. Would anyone else like to make a comment?
Sorry, I have just one more comment. So if this is approved, what is the timeline? How long is it going to take for this to be completed? And what are the coincidences or what happens if those timelines aren't followed? Are we talking about a year? Are we talking about 10 years? What's the timeline? Can anybody answer that? I know what Barry told me the other day when I talked to him.
I can attempt to answer if you would like, and I'm going to look at the city attorney on this.
I would say that's a question. We have your question, and that would fall under discussion after the public hearing. And we will bring up the timeline. We will ask a question of the applicants about the timeline. So, but we can't have a back and forth between you and the applicant at this time, but we will, that's a good question and we will ask. But that's the next thing is discussion.
That's a very important question.
It is. All right, we're still in public hearing. Would anyone else like to make a comment concerning this request? Are there any further comments concerning this request? Would anyone else like to come forward with comments concerning this request? In that case, the public hearing is closed and we move on to item number 10, discussion recommendation on request for a zoning amendment from Barry G Luce Trust, Lake Mills, Wisconsin, for the purpose of changing the zoning from single-family residential R16 to multifamily residential R312 with planned development district overlay for western part of 257 South Main and the property at 265 South Main. And now we understand that the applicants are agreeing, as I understand it, that this is actually for 265 South Main and not for part of the 257. So that is the change from the posted public hearing notice. We are in discussion, and did you say, are you Mrs. Hobb? Is that the correct? Sorry. Oh, Mrs. Kopp, yeah, because Mrs. Kopp, when she spoke, she brought up a question about the timeline, and this would be a good time to ask Mr. Boyks, would you be able to comment on the timeline? Would you be able to comment the timeline?
It would depend on approval of what has to go next. I mean, I don't know if we have to come back with a different plan because we're going to make it smaller. I don't know. Once the plans are in place, we're ready to go. I would say we'd like to get this thing over in 6 months.
Why? Do you know what the timeline would be like with the State Historical Society?
Well, with them, everything is approved. All the tax credits and everything, they're ready. They're on board already. So all that has been approved, and they would be with us every step of the way.
Okay.
I could certainly answer process-wise how this would work.
Okay, Mr. Welch.
Should you approve what has been brought forward in the staff recommendation, which obviously the property owner said that they are amenable to, it will go forward to the city council. From there, if that is approved, then they would need to provide revised plans for building permits. Obviously, the building permit process is its own entity, right? But We know what we'd be looking for from the site design and interior remodeling space. Of course, they have to meet whatever the criteria is for the building inspector to get building permits. Timing of building permits, once it's issued, is you have a certain amount of time, and I don't want to be quoted on it because I'm not the building inspector, but if they are not seeing progress, they can rescind building permits. So regular, consistent progress needs to be made towards completion of what is the approved project. Generally, these don't drag on that long because that becomes a dollars and cents issue. Once you're mobilized and going, you want to get done as quickly as possible. You don't want people in the trades coming out as, you know, more than they need to because the price tag goes up. So, but once this is approved, it really moves into the hands of the building inspector to make sure things are being addressed. That includes weatherproofing the home and cleaning up the sites, and again, some latitudes given on an active construction site, on, you know, materials, equipment, etc. But I look to the city attorney on this. This has certainly been an issue that the city has been mindful of and has been trying to get to the point where we have some definitive plan that will be implemented. And instead of a little bit here, a little bit there. So, of course, the hope is that things will move along expeditiously following any approvals at this level.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wolf. Mr. Boyks. All right, Plan Commission, do you have questions of the applicants or staff? We do have motion 2110-3, Planning Commission motion 2110-3, the City Council for zoning amendment. Barry G Luce Trust and Thomas A. Boyks Trust. 250. It should read, well, now it's 257 Street. We can take that up after we get into it. Lake Mills, Wisconsin. And the parcel numbers 246071314140001 and 246071314140002. Motion 2110-3 sets forth the city's land use and zoning authority under Wisconsin state statutes, that the city's zoning has chapter 660 with certain requirements for rezoning. The rezoning request for changing the zoning in the original application from R16 to R312 multifamily overlay with PDD planned development district overlay, review by city staff, and tonight's public hearing and plan commission review. This motion does provide for a plan commission recommendation to the city council to rezone the parcel as requested. This motion also states that zoning procedure under chapter 660 have been met and that rezoning will not be approved until the petitioner meets all requirements of the municipal code and those noted in the planner's memo. And Mr. Wolf went over these recommendations, and well, the main thing that that this is only applicable to 265. A lot of 265 would be the main thing. So
That would mean
that is correct. We're only talking about the parcel that is 265 South Main Street. And so, as I understand it, that's with the appendage of 002, but that would be confirmed. So, right away, were you to recommend approval of this motion, or rather pass this motion, then it would be amended.
Well, I'll recommend an amendment after somebody motions to it.
All right. All right.
Do we have any pictures for welcome parking? I know we got a description from we have answers.
We do not, they would need to provide that. I will say informally, at the staff level, we can lay out what it would take to do that. It certainly will be accommodated. We would then need to have the engineers ensure any stormwater, et cetera, is addressed with swales or bioretention or something on the rear of the site. They had shown, I will make it clear, they currently show stormwater management facilities on the site, but it was in relation to much larger impervious surface area going into the neighboring lot. So those revisions will be required to be reviewed, provided and reviewed before they can get a building permit.
And commissioners, these are the conditions for
Yeah,
Mr.
but just
Brady.
a question. I hope my questions, sometimes my questions go on for another hour, so I apologize in advance, everyone. But I was wondering about, like, it doesn't seem like this is the first opportunity that you guys have had where you're taking a hotel and turning it into apartments, right? There's like Lake Street, isn't that an old hotel that is now apartments? And I'm just wondering if parking was an issue then and how that was resolved.
Those were from, I'll say, decades ago, to be honest. In the time that I've worked with the city, since 2004, we have not had any of these conversions.
Okay.
So if Mr. Wilkie was here, he could provide you probably with more information on that. But when you talk about some of the sites on Newberry, right, Newberry? Mulberry. I work in too many communities sometimes. There's a Newberry, a Mulberry. On Mulberry, you have the inns and such. Again, those are evaluated to make sure that they have enough parking for the units that they have on within them on site. That's again what we're trying to accomplish here.
Does anyone, usually Mr. Wilkie is the historical individual, but why was this originally zoned single family?
I'm sure decades ago it was just decided we're going to zone everything down Main Street, single family. When we updated the zoning code 5-6 years ago now, we had evaluated whether or not this should be R312. The decision at that time, and it's important to note the next agenda item is the public hearing on the comp plan amendment. The comprehensive plan that was completed in 2008 does show this specific property at 265 being for multifamily. In the event it was redeveloped in the future, well, now in the future. So I will say 5-6 years ago, we chose not to rezone it to R312 because then it was a by right issue rather than having a plan for restoration associated with it. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
And commissioners, the recommendations, the conditions that are set here are A, approval of the future land use map amendment. B, lighting fixture details provided in a photometric plan submitted. C, snow removal plan for the development. D, developer to provide details on refuse collection for the development. E, developer resubmits amended plans that incorporate the following changes and zoning exemptions. Roman numeral 1, lot requirements and density. A, minimum lot width can be reduced from 100 feet to 77 feet. Roman numeral 2, principal structure. Minimum floor area can be reduced from 800 square feet dwelling unit to the following. Unit 1, 761 square feet. Unit 2, 718 square feet. Unit 4, 767 square feet. Unit 5, 771 square feet. Unit 8, 765 square feet. Unit 9, 769 square feet. And of course, is showing the combination as advised by the planner. And in real life, you'll number them consecutively, I'm sure. B, modifications to building layout. Floor 1, expand Unit 3 to a minimum of 800 square feet for space by moving wall into foyer area. Floor 2, combine Unit 6 and Unit 7 into a two-bedroom apartment. Floor 3, combine Units 10 and Unit 11 into a two-bedroom apartment. Roman numeral 3, parking. Covered parking requirement is exempted to allow removal of the accessory structure. B, off-street tenant parking requirement is reduced from 2 per unit to 1 per unit or a bedroom. 9 to 11 tenant stalls. Visitor parking is exempted. F, any additional requirements provided by the city engineer or public works director. So those are the conditions set forward for this motion. Is there anyone who wishes to make a motion concerning motion 2110-3?
I move to approve motion 21-10-3, recommendation for council for zoning amendment for the Barry G Luce Trust and Thomas A. Boyks Trust for what is currently titled 257 and 265 South Main.
Is there a second to this motion?
A second.
Moved and seconded. Is there discussion?
I just have one question. If this is approved, then they'll proceed by right, and then it'll be based on staff review from there on. If we change the zone, then it will,
change
then
zoning.
what they're proposing will be by right. Is that what we understand?
No, because it's by plan development district, so it's very specific to the plans that are developed.
We'll come back to
The revisions are required.
Yeah, so it'll be basically kind of by right then, and it'll go ahead.
It's not by, I do want to clarify, it's not by right, because there is another level
Oh.
of use and stop, they don't imply that.
Yes.
The basis of the memo.
That's staff review.
Yeah, staff will review that before issuing permits.
Just wanted to be clear. Thanks.
Is that my understanding? That's why you have that PDD-Overlay on top.
For less than all requirements, or exactly what you said.
So I do have a question. So if we're not doing the smaller lot to the north, then the petitioner doesn't need a certified survey map. And then do what is proposed in the southern lot? Are they within all of the other code requirements then for just that southern?
So those were the exemptions that we highlighted in the planner's memo. So the minimum lot width for our R3 lot is 100 feet. This lot is only 77 feet. So we called out that as a plan development district exemption to allow 77 feet. The parking requirements we have specified. The minimum size of apartments is 800 square feet. It's why we called out by unit. The minimum sizes that have to be met. Because, and again, that's what's on the plan, and then the modification to unit 3, and then the combination of whichever units on floor 2 and floor 3 to make a 2-bedroom will meet the 800 square foot. So again, the memo highlights those requirements that have to be addressed because they are exemptions under the plan development district. But your point on the certified survey map is well noted. It should be stricken because it is not necessary.
Plan commissioners, I would also like to consider an amendment to this motion to refer only to 265 South Main Street.
So I move to amend 21-10-3, remove reference to 257 South Main, and to strike parcel number 246071314141001, correct parcel number, and to do the same in paragraph A below to strike the 001 parcel.
Is there a second to this motion for amendment?
Second.
It's been moved by Mrs. Bishop and seconded by Mr. Grady to amend motion 2110-3 to strike 257 South Main Street from the title and the corresponding parcel number, and then also under paragraph A to strike the parcel number that corresponds with 257 South Main. If there's any discussion, then we'll proceed with a roll call vote on the amendment.
Ms. Lazaris, you ready for the roll call?
Oh, yes, please, roll call vote, please on the amendment.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Holman?
Aye.
Mr. Coots?
Aye. Aye.
Ms. Lazaris?
Aye.
Mr. Grady?
Aye.
Mrs. Bishop?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passed 6-0.
I thank you, and then the amendment passed, and now I'll entertain a motion on the amended motion. Is there a motion on passing motion 2110-3 as amended?
To approve motion 21-10-3.
Is there a second? Been moved by Mrs. Bishop and seconded by Mr. Grady to pass motion 2110-3 as amended. Any further discussion? Now, the case will proceed with a roll call vote on the amended motion 2110-3.
Mr. Holman?
Aye.
Mr. Coots?
Nay.
Ms. Lazaris?
Aye.
Mr. Grady?
Aye.
Mrs. Bishop?
Aye. Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-1.
All right, thank you. And the next item is item number 11, public hearing, request for a future land use map amendment for the purpose of changing the future land use for the following properties, and in this case, 257 South Main is listed. However, well, we have to start with what the initial request is. So it's for the parcel at 257 South Main Street from single-family development to mixed residential development, and the parcel at 265 South Main Street from planned business office to mixed residential. For the land use map amendment, and the public hearing is open. Mr. Wolf, did you have anything to present before we start taking testimony?
Yes, we highlighted in the initial PDD memo about the future land use issue with the sites. The neighborhood is all the properties along South Main Street, with the exception of 265 South Main, are shown as single family in the future land use category. 265 South Main was always listed as mixed residential, which is your multifamily residential category in the comprehensive plan. It is the kind of lone site out there, if you will, around it. For the land use of, for the zoning to take place, zoning decisions have to be compatible with, consistent with the land use. So the amendment to the future land use map is necessary because under existing land, under the map, it is shown as future, but it has not been trying to clarify this. This amendment was brought forward for the property to the north. And so I'm looking at the attorney, and we write these things generally in the affirmative, if you will, the way the petitioner brings them in. If the property to the north is being removed, is the land use amendment then technically necessary because 265 South Main is already shown as being mixed residential? And since we are no longer talking about 257,
So in this circumstance, I definitely support the public hearing and definitely take in the information that's available, absolutely 100%. Whether or not the actual land use map is necessary in this circumstance, I think that's actually a better question for you as the planner as to the designations of the existing properties right now. Having removed 257 from it, which I completely expected to happen, I think it does absolutely change the circumstances, and a future land use map may not be necessary, but I would absolutely still hold the hearing and move forward from that point. You can still make a recommendation to the council that if this is necessary, this is what the motion is going, or the ordinance in this circumstance is going to look like. And in that circumstance, I would absolutely recommend that you, at the minimum, remove 257 from this specific document. I'm not going to state whether or not the future land use amendment for 265 is necessary without 257 because I don't know at this time. So that's my advice right now.
All right.
I'm going to just pull the map. So
We are hearing, and this is for a future land use map amendment. Are there any public comments concerning this proposed amendment to the future land use map? Does anyone wish to speak to the proposed amendment to the land use map? Are there any comments pertaining to the proposed amendment to the land use map? Hearing none, the public hearing portion is closed, and we go on to item number 12, discussion recommendation on request for future land use map amendment to change the future land use for the following properties: part of parcel 246071314140001, 257 South Main Street from single family development to mixed residential development, parcel 246071314140002 at 265 South Main Street from planned business office to mixed residential. Mr. Wolf, you wanted to speak?
So I just wanted to show up on the screen here is the adopted future land use map from the comprehensive plan. As you can see, the one site, if you're looking at this kind of dark red, this is the fire station, the mobile, and then as you go south, you can see that there's single family, and then you get to this orange one, which is your mixed residential, which is the Bayberry site, which is currently adopted future land use for multifamily. So, but to Dan's point, right, I'm sure he doesn't want to like get us ahead of ourselves, but the issue of not needing an amendment for the lands to the north that they wanted to append earlier is no longer necessary, but.
Bishop.
Can I make a motion? What I'd like to do is ask the petitioner, is there any requirement that you have for this decision to be made tonight, one way or another? And I will make the motion first before you answer. So may I motion to do that?
Of course.
So I move to suspend the rules and in order to ask the petitioner a question.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Bishop and seconded by Mr. Holman to suspend the rules and ask a question of the petitioner. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? Aye. You can proceed.
I can ask Mr. Boyks or Mr. Weston, was it? Is there any information that you have that we would need to know about tonight that would tell us we should make a decision on this issue tonight?
No, we're okay with letting it happen at the pace that it needs to happen.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that.
All right, thank you. All right, so concerning the prepared motion for land use map amendment, I understand that this is not necessary. Is that correct?
It's my opinion that it shouldn't be necessary, but I will also defer to the city attorney to make sure that we're on the same page and the staff has evaluated this properly in relation to the removal of the lands to the north. It should not hinder the previous action item moving forward with council and revision of plans and such.
Definitely agree with that last statement. Addressing this or not addressing this should not.
All right, so Mr. Drush, are you advised that we table this? Anyone like to make a motion to table 24?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to table that motion as printed.
Mr. Holman moved and Mr. Coots seconded to table motion 21 and 4. Any discussion? In that case, we'll proceed with a roll call vote.
Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Ms. Lazaris?
Aye.
Mr. Grady?
Aye.
Mrs. Bishop?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Holman?
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Okay, our next item, 13, recommendation for future agendas. Is there anything that we should be aware of or discuss at this time?
Nothing is jumping out at me from what's been submitted recently, so.
Aye, very well. In that case, we move on to item 14, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn? A motion by Mr. Grady and a second by Mr. to adjourn. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Anyone against, same sign. We are adjourned.